Muslim doctor shows up with scraggly beard, outraged at what staff has waiting for him. A newly hired and very entitled doctor thought he was above the rules when he arrived to work with a scraggly beard. However, staffers quickly showed him that he'll comply whether he likes it or not. Despite the left assurance that Islam is compatible with our Western values, the tiny Muslim minority repeatedly proves that they must adhere to their religion's strict compulsory law. Eventually, this call for their right to practice Sharia turns into a demand for non-Muslims to also obey it. Since the Prophet Muhammad is the example of religious purity that all Muslims are required to emulate, every last one of his countless principles is essential in the endeavor to be a good Muslim. Although it is one of few non-violent commands, the mandate for men to grow and maintain a beard proves that it is just as inharmonious and downright burdensome in a progressive society. When a Muslim doctor arrived for training at a Paris hospital, he knew that the law prohibits the display of religious symbols in the workplace at the employer discretion. But, just as every devout Muslim holds Sharia above the law of the land, the doctor showed up to work with an unkempt Islamic beard, daring any infidel to challenge Islam authority. Fortunately, the hospital not only challenged it but delivered an appropriately brutal response. The Telegraph reports that when a 35-year-old Egyptian doctor, identified only as Mohammed A., arrived for training at St. Denis Hospital in September 2013, the medical staff informed him that he would have to trim his beard because his physical appearance was likely to indicate conspicuously a religious conviction, that is to say that his facial hair would have patients and staff suspecting that he is a devout Muslim, which might make them feel uneasy. In October, hospital managers told him to trim his beard so that it could not be seen by staff and users of the public service as an obvious sign of a religious affiliation incompatible with the principles of secularity and neutrality of the public service. According to court documents, thanks to an EU court ruling, the hospital was able to terminate the doctor when he admitted that he was unwilling to comply with the ban on religious symbols in the hospital. Of course, this didn't stop the entitled medical trainee from attempting to use France's laws against his gracious hosts. In a monumental win for democracy, the Versailles Appeals Court rejected Mohammed's discrimination claim and instead sided with the hospital decision to uphold their religious neutrality policy. Pathetically, Mohammed's lawyer, Noel Gafsha, attempted to argue that his client's beard didn't necessarily indicate that he is a Muslim, although he admitted his religious affiliation to hospital staff. My client could have been a hipster, Gafsha claimed, according to StepFeed. Of course, Mohammed is not a hipster but a religious fanatic who hoped to flout both the law and his employer policy. Luckily, his plan to enforce Sharia law at the French medical center and in the local courts failed miserably. The man lawyer, Noel Gafsha, called the decision scandalous, mind-boggling, discriminatory and racist, and motivated by a suspicion for Islam by nature. This is a totally subjective interpretation of the so-called religious nature of the beard. This decision was based on my client's refusal to cut his beard because his religion is a private issue. The hospital would have forced him to say, "Oh, this is not religious." The man lawyer, Noel Gafsha, said, "He is called Mohammed. If he was called Lionel DuPont, he could have had an even longer beard and there would have been no problem." Unfortunately, Mohammed isn't out of a job. In fact, he was accepted by Paul Bruce Hospital without the requirement to trim his beard. Disturbingly, Mohammed is still pursuing a lawsuit, vowing to take his alleged discrimination case to a higher court, proving that his motivation isn't about religious freedom, which he gained at Paul Bruce, but rather an attempt to enforce Sharia law. Mohammed and his lawyer are using the typical Islamic rhetoric which Muslims spew in a bid to undermine the law or any legitimate examination of Islam. They accuse their critics of racism, discrimination, and bigotry, despite the fact that it is these principles that create the foundation of Islam and its laws. Under Sharia law, religious minorities are denied basic human rights. Mandatory beards are the least of anyone's worries. Still, Muslims demand to be allowed to practice Sharia, which is an illegal foreign law, while enjoying the freedoms and protection of democracy. Thankfully, this hospital didn't bow to Sharia law by allowing Mohammed exemption from the rules that apply to everyone else, which would have been actual discrimination.